Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for a review of the new self-titled Murmur album. This is the sophomore LP from the Chicago-based metal outfit Murmur. This new LP of theirs is being dropped right at the start of this year by a label which is a subdivision of Season of Mist Records, a pretty heavy hitter in the metal underground as far as labels go, if you weren't aware. This band's 2010 debut LP slipped by me, however, when looking through their back catalog after listening to this new album of theirs, I was not surprised to find that they actually have a split out with another experimental metal outfit from the Midwest, Knockmistium. And I'm not surprised because I feel like these two bands share a lot of common ground. I do think they have a similar stylistic approach in that black metal is a really huge foundational influence for the music that both of these groups create. In the case of Murmur, it seems to inform their wretched vocals, their claustrophobic recording, and their sort of dismal chord progressions. But both bands only really use black metal as a bit of a home base as they reach out and experiment with other genres, incorporating them into this traditionally dark sound. Even though the first track on this LP is a pretty harsh wake-up call with some obvious black metal influences, as this song and this entire album progresses, elements of experimental rock, jazz fusion all reveal themselves. The band might jam on like an off-kilter riff or an odd time signature, or create some chaos with some really glitchy electronics, or a flurry of percussion from drummer Charlie Werber, whose playing is actually a huge highlight on nearly every track here. The track Recuerdos is kind of an acoustic guitar-driven folky interlude that's a pretty nice come down. And there are moments on this LP as well where the band seems to embrace that noisy, mind-numbing riff repetition of a band like Swans, which happens on the track King in Yellow, a song that isn't my favorite on here, mostly because I do think that repetition makes the song overstay its welcome a little bit. The vocals on this thing can be really aggressive and abrasive, and in other spots here, kind of melodic. On the song When Blood Leaves, you have these sort of eerie, deadpan vocal harmonies that have such a cultish vibe to them. I love it. On the opening track here, there are some really heavenly chorus vocals hanging in the background, and whether they're sampled or synthesized or not, they add a really nice and sort of pretty sound to this very evil metal recording. And to speak to the more freakish side of this record, there is the song Zeta 2, Part 2, where over these really oddly shaped riffs that are locked in really tightly with the drums, we're getting what is sort of heavy metal scatting. Ooh, bah, da, da, ah, 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 ah. Even the final song on this LP is a cover of King Crimson's Larks, Tongues, and Aspic Part 2, really more of a bonus track for those who are interested, but that sort of shows you where this band is coming from. They really love their progressive rock, they really love their jazz rock. And not that they should be ashamed either of what bands they're sort of taking ideas from to make this record, because they're blending all of these influences so seamlessly that this self-titled record is a little refreshing in a sense. For the most part, the band understands tension and release and how it can use these two things to drag songs on for long periods of time and keep it interesting. This talent is best displayed on the first three tracks here. For one, the song Water for Water, which has this really dismal opening with acoustic guitars, and it builds really slowly with some guitar leads that are wailing and electric piano keys that are scattered about. The percussion is all over the place, and suddenly the song just explodes into a wall of blast beats, these very messy and chaotic tremolo pick guitars, and like I said earlier, these heavenly background vocals that sort of, as they return, raise the climaxes of the song higher and higher. Then there's the song Bull of Crete, which has all these really sharp, shrill guitar chords and riffs playing over this drumming that, the more I listen to it, it just reminds me of Animal from the Muppets. I can't really explain it in any other way. While I do know the stylistic influences that make Charlie Werber play the way that he does, I just imagine him playing this track and just see his hands all over the place. The song eventually just glides into this ascending chord progression that I absolutely love. The track then moves through a series of riffs and dismal interludes before it comes back and returns to a lot of the same themes, but with a lot more drama and power. Those are two words I would use to describe the next track on here as well, AL-MALIK, the longest song here with more than 11 minutes in length, and a track that sticks out to me because of the greatest difference between one part and another part and another part in the song. I mean, there are so many hard-hitting riffs right at the beginning of this track, but then it just boils down very quickly into this deep, dark, depressing, bleak set of guitar passages. And the really murky bass riffs and the sort of sparse electric piano, it reminds me of darker groups in progressive rock music like Magma or Guapo. The band essentially structures this album in a way where they hit you with these 3 monster songs and then sort of go down a little bit into this folky interlude, which is a very great track, and then hit you with 3 more tracks that seem to be sort of linked into one another. To me, there are only 2 major weak points on this LP, and they don't even really distract me that much from enjoying the album. For one, the vocals. Sometimes they're chilling and really aggressive, sometimes they're melodic, other times they're kind of straightforward and shouting and pretty intelligible. The vocals definitely get the job done. They don't bore me, but they don't wow me on here as much as some of the guitar playing, and especially the drumming. However, this might also be due to how buried the vocals feel in the overall recording, which is sort of my second issue with this album. What exactly Murmur is doing on this record, the detail of it feels slightly obscured by the kind of grimy sound that this record has to offer. And while I'm sure on some level it's an aesthetic choice, it did take me a few listens to kind of make heads or tails of the nuances to the playing on this thing. So I thought this thing was really great. I'd highly recommend it. I mean, there were some really visceral, jagged, progressive rock riffs on this thing. Fantastic, diverse drumming with a lot of fluidity, excitement. These guys keep the sound gritty and they keep the playing strong. And I think the album itself is pretty cohesive from front to back, with a lot of songs on here complementing one another, segue into another, or explore different sounds or experiments to keep this record from getting too redundant. I wish the sound on this thing was a little more hard-hitting, and I wish the ending was a bit more climactic. It's definitely one of the most dismal tracks on this entire record, but still, I am feeling the lightest and fluffiest of 8s on this thing. Transition. If you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Murmur, forever.